So that group of part of the future of America were screaming for Olivia Dunne, a gymnast at Louisiana State University. She's a college athlete, specifically an LSU gymnast. She is super famous, over 6 million on TikTok, 2.8 million on Instagram. And her rise has helped create this massive frenzy, not only for her, but her team, and even just other parts of college gymnastics. Right, for example, the LSU gymnastics team had a meet in Utah on Friday, one that Livvy didn't even compete in. And you had a Utah sports reporter tweeting that outside of the venue, there was a massive line of, quote, teenage boys that are asking if Livvy is coming out, saying, I've never seen anything like this. And later adding, LSU had to move its team bus so they didn't have to run into the group of boys, and saying there were cops stationed in front to avoid them getting in. And the mother of one of the gymnasts on the opposing team even claiming that the crowd of fans harassed her daughter, saying things like, you're not Livvy, but you'll do? Can we get a picture? And adding that they were rude and disrespectful. Also, Kathy Johnson-Clark, a sports commentator and former gymnast, also saying she encountered the same group of boys from the video we played earlier, and writing, they were screaming to me, are you Livvy's mom? Are you Livvy's mom? Very disturbing. Creepy, actually. And saying, to be clear, these are teenage boys and this should be a teachable moment. They were excited to see in person someone they follow on social media, along with 4 million plus other obsessed fans, but they have no idea how to comport themselves during the competition or after. And all this even leading to Livvy tweeting, I will always appreciate and love the support from you guys, but if you come to a meet, I want to ask you to please be respectful of the other gymnasts in the gymnastics community, as we are just doing our job. And regarding some of those other gymnasts, some on the Utah team spoke to the media, one telling Fox 13 in Salt Lake City that she can tell that all this screaming upsets Livvy, that she's just trying to keep her head down, with another adding, she's just like us. She's another gymnast, another teammate, she's doing exactly the same thing. But when there's disrespectful comments, it's kind of a shame, especially when you're working hard to perform for those fans. And the thing is, I think we're just gonna see more of this, because with how accessible social media is at a very young age, and even now, how easy it is to create content at such a young age, and people that are blowing up are at such a young age, more and more are still going to be in high school and college, especially when it comes to those in sports. They have events that you know that they're going to, so people are going to show up, especially with, as of late, more college athletes being so active on social media because they can now take advantage of their name, image, likeness, which is also why you have an increasing number of people saying that LSU gymnastics and Livvy Dunne need more security. But for now, that's where we are, and I'll pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts based off of what we're seeing in this situation? And then, I promise we are not holding you hostage. A concerning sentence to hear that would make you think, wait, am I being held hostage? But something an Amtrak conductor actually had to say to passengers when their train stalled in the middle of nowhere, resulting in a 20-hour delay. So this Amtrak train on its way from Virginia to Florida, supposed to be an easy, uneventful trip, leave Lorton, Virginia at 5:30 Monday night, reach Sanford, Florida, 10 a.m. on Tuesday. But then things go a little off the rails. Myself. But that's because the train had to be rerouted after a freight train of 25 cars and 2 locomotives was derailed in South Carolina. Now, luckily, that derailed train, it didn't contain any hazardous materials, no one was hurt, but the passenger train had to take a detour, still heading south, until they had to stop in a wooded area in South Carolina where they were stalled for hours because the crew of the train reportedly timed out, meaning that they could no longer legally operate the train. So the passengers ended up just having to wait for a new crew to arrive there in the woods before they could get moving again. With some of the passengers so freaked out, they reportedly called the police because they thought they were being held hostage. That is, before the conductor, and definitely not a terrorist who took over the train in pursuit of secret gold in one of the cars, assured them that they were fine.
Once again, for those of you that are calling the police, we are not holding you hostage. We are giving you all the information in which we have. We are sorry about the inconvenience. As soon as more information is available, we will let you know shortly. Thank you.
An Amtrak representative also saying the passengers were being provided with plenty of food and regular updates. But still, you had people saying it felt like we were, with one passenger telling NBC News that passengers were told they could not leave the train at any point. But the good news is the train did eventually make its way to Sanford after a 20+ hour delay. And reportedly, Amtrak is working with the customers to also give them refunds. And then, if you've been following me for a while now, you know that I've been on my health grind for this past year. Sometimes I have to look back at old videos just to appreciate how far I've come, but working out consistently has been so great for my quality of life. And that's why I'm happy to thank the sponsor of today's video, Copilot. Copilot is a super personalized fitness app that helps you achieve your fitness goals for real. In fact, over 75% of Copilot users are still working out after 100 days. That's 9 times more successful than average. So, like I did, you get connected with a coach, start off with an onboarding call, going over where you're at with your fitness, what you're looking for, goals, things like that. And then they make customized workouts for you depending on your needs. And having this guiding hand, especially when it comes to working out and all the planning, things like that, like it's so important because I get lost so quick. Or before Copilot, I'm doing some random workout I'm not actually actually thinking about what I'm trying to do or accomplish there. I'm not thinking about how it affects my goals in general, what I want to do later that week. And I just knew from my first onboarding call with my coach, Devin, like, we got it. Here are my goals. What's the structure that's going to help get me there? Am I thinking too big here, too small here? It was fantastic. So if you want to join me with a fitness journey of your own, just click that link in the description box to get 14 days free with your own expert fitness and health coach. And then the FAA literally had to ground all domestic flights in the United States, with the Federal Aviation Administration explaining in statements that the groundings were due to an overnight outage of the agency's Notice to Air Mission Systems, or NOTAM, which is an absolutely crucial system that provides real-time safety alerts to pilots about everything from weather conditions to airport construction. And I really don't want to undersell this. This was massive, with one former FAA official telling the Washington Post that this national flight stoppage was the first of its kind since 9/11, and adding, this is unheard of, and then the action that the FAA had to take in grounding all the flights makes it even more significant. But key thing here, unlike 9/11, the system failure doesn't appear to be the result of some massive attack of some kind. In fact, the White House explicitly saying that there was no evidence of any sort of cyber attack. President Biden also meeting with Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, with him later telling reporters they don't know what the cause of it is. They expect in a couple of hours they'll have a good sense of what caused it and will respond at that time. And adding that the White House is directing the department to investigate. Now, the good news is that at 9 a.m. Eastern time, about 2 hours after the groundings, the FAA announced that it was lifting the ground stop, that all flights would gradually resume. But the bad news is that it still caused massive disruptions, with, as of recording this morning, it being reported that more than 7,300 flights within, into, or out of the U.S. were delayed, while over 1,100 had been canceled entirely. And notably, this is all coming as the air industry is still recovering from the disaster that was the holiday travel season. Which, an interesting thing there, obviously that was due to extreme weather conditions, but of course, notably, while most airlines recovered, Southwest infamously continued to struggle, with them canceling around 16,700 flights in a 10-day period. Right, that was about half of all U.S. cancellations during that time. And so now, with the FAA system failure causing even more problems, now there are a lot of people looking at certain airlines, including Southwest. Because I mean, already it's being reported this morning that Southwest was responsible for nearly half of all the delays globally, with American Airlines just underneath them accounting for 40%. And while of course these delays and cancellations are going to add scrutiny to how airlines are functioning right now, because the failure happened with the FAA system here, the federal government is also facing criticism. This including from key politicians like Ted Cruz, the top Republican on the Senate committee that oversees transportation, who condemned the FAA's, quote, inability to keep an important safety system up and running, and saying it's completely unacceptable and just the latest example of dysfunction within the Department of Transportation, with him adding that this highlights the need for a competent, proven leader with substantive aviation experience leading the FAA. And actually, to his point there, this major failure did take place at a time when the FAA does not currently have a permanent leader, with the last administrator having stepped down back in March. Now that said, President Biden, for his part, has nominated a candidate, but that person didn't get a confirmation hearing in the Senate. And just last week, Biden re-nominated the same guy, but it's unclear if he will be approved because top Republicans have voiced concerns about his experience in aviation and connection to a corruption investigation. So, you know, like most things government, everything is either a clown show or a dumpster fire. And then the thing in your kitchen is killing you. And no, I do not mean the frozen pre-processed hot pocket in your fridge, which is both cold and like lava when you eat it, but rather I'm talking about your gas stove, which statistically, if you live in the US, more than 40% of homes have. And the reason for that are the chemicals involved. Or when a gas stove is on, you're inhaling methane and other chemicals like nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, and formaldehyde, with studies showing that they jumpstart things like childhood asthma, increase the risk of respiratory problems, and emit planet-warming gases. And it's not just like a teensy little health risk. One study last week estimated 12.7% of childhood asthmas could be attributed to living in a household with a gas stove, with some scientists even comparing it to living with a smoker. And when you consider that 40 million homes across the US cook with gas, that becomes alarming. So then you get the question, well, why do we actually use gas? There are electric stoves, induction stoves. Well, as it turns out, the surprise answer, it's not a surprise, capitalism. Right, that quirky little girl capitalism doing her thing. Right, starting in the 1930s, the natural gas industry blanketed the American public with propaganda from commercials and advertisements to slogans and even 80s rap.
Cooking with gas.
Cooking with
Gas. We all cook better when we're cooking with gas.
Gas is so hot it's not on when it's off. It's the only way to cook. That's what I was taught.
Very dope fresh, am I right? But in recent years, they've refined their effort, doing things like hiring PR firms to oppose local bans on gas appliances, though that hasn't stopped some cities like New York, Seattle, and Los Angeles from moving to ban them in certain new homes and apartments. Plus, this is a key thing, listen up, the federal government has also taken its own step with last year's Inflation Reduction Act, because you may not know, that includes cash to help low and moderate income households switch off their gas stoves. Right, a nearly $850 rebate for those that make the switch to electric appliances, plus an additional $500 to help cover the cost of converting. With that, the American Gas Association, who of course only want the best for you and only you, it's not about them, they say this could significantly drive up the overall cost of housing. But this also happening as a commissioner from the Consumer Product Safety Commission says they're looking into tightening safety standards around gas appliances, which we've seen infuriate both the gas industry and Republicans on Capitol Hill, with Representative Kathy McMorris Rodgers, who chairs the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, questioning the research linking gas stoves to asthma. But hey, in the meantime, if you want to be a little safer, if you go to like Amazon, you can get an electric griddle for $25. You pair that with an air fryer, which you can even get the $40 $100 air fryers on Amazon, and you can make everything. And I'm telling you to do this without providing an Amazon affiliate link like an idiot. And then, what are Republicans doing with their newfound power in the House of Representatives? Well, yesterday we saw the House GOP voting